Hello, friends, and whoever is watching here. My name is Meeta Dani, and I'm an international watercolor artist and founder and president of Global Association of Watercolor Artists and author of the book Realistic Watercolor Unleashed. As promised, today I have got Stephen Kozar with me. Oh, wow, he's having my book. Okay. So I'm having Stephen Kozar. You must be knowing him. He's a great, great, great personality. I cannot tell enough about him. So a little introduction from my end. Stephen Kozar is my godfather, actually, because when I was passing through mental depression, I accidentally came across some hyperrealistic paintings on Google, and those paintings were of Stephen Kozar. The second, later on, I also searched and I got some paintings of Eric Christensen and Kelly Eddington. But the very first paintings which I saw, photorealistic, hyperrealistic, they are of Stephen Kozar, which totally changed my life.
Wow.
Whatever I am today, I can give a lot of credit to Stephen Kozar. And so I call him as my godfather. I don't know whether he knows me or not, means he knows this or not, but he is. So today I have got him in front of you, and I have got some interesting questions for Stephen Kozar, and I hope you all will get benefited from listening to him and will definitely get motivated and inspired to follow your artistic passion. So Stephen Kozar, you can tell a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm really glad that you were inspired by my work. And I hope that I can inspire other people. And I hope that talking about my own story will be not just inspiring can sometimes mean that you overly polish something to make it seem better than it really is. Because when I talk about my life story as an artist, I had a lot of things go wrong. A lot of things go wrong. I had a lot of difficulties. Even today, I don't consider myself terribly successful in terms of, making money every single month and selling every painting I do and being recognized all around the world. I have a little bit of that, but it's always a mixture. And the thing that has driven me, I think, is that I just love painting. I love making really beautiful paintings, and I never put anything above that. In other words, if I was so interested in just making money and just being famous, I would have given up a long time ago. I started painting in, what would this be,
1986?
86, that's right. I dropped out of art school. I was going to the American Academy of Art, and I ran out of money for tuition. I won't tell that whole story, but I just really, really wanted to paint. In a nutshell, I was so driven by this passion to make paintings, and I had been inspired by other people. I had been inspired by looking at other people's art, and I really thought that I could do it. So I was very driven. I was very determined. I didn't kind of maybe want to be a painter. I wanted to be a painter. So whether that was good or bad, I don't know. I was so driven. I was almost a little bit obsessive. No, I was obsessive. I was crazy. Sometimes I think I still am crazy. But when somebody says to me, like every once in a while, a parent will meet me and say, my son or daughter is interested in art. What advice would you give them? And I ask them, do they want to paint really bad, or do they have a lot of other interests as well? Do they sort of dabble in painting, but also dabble in a bunch of other things? And if they say, oh, they do a little bit of art and a little bit of music and a little bit of whatever, I say, it probably isn't going to be their thing. It's probably not going to be something for them to make into a career, because you have to be just so crazy, passionate, driven. And those people just kind of emerge out of all the difficulties. They keep going because they want it so bad. They don't want the fame. They don't want the money. They want to make the art. And they have this art sort of in their head. That's how I felt. I had all these ideas in my head, and I could almost see them. And I needed to just get it out of my head and onto paper. And I was very naive. So I thought I would have all this success because my work would be good enough and everybody would love me and everybody would want to buy my paintings. And oh my gosh, it was so much harder than I thought. It was just ridiculously more difficult than I thought. I mean, I've met a lot of other artists over the years, and I don't think I've met anybody whose story is as ridiculous as my story. Their difficulties weren't as difficult as mine. So if I'm going to brag about something, I'll brag about how crummy a job I've done at being a professional artist. So I'm glad that I've inspired you, and I hope to inspire others. But you have to get over a lot of hurdles, I think, is one of my key messages. I don't want to ever give people the impression that being an artist.
I just started.
Yeah.
I can say I just started.
And you will have, and already have had a lot more success than I have. I think the internet is a really useful way for people to get information and to learn more in a brief amount of time. This is just off the top of my head, but a big piece of advice I would give people is to get a lot of information from a lot of different sources. Don't think that this one guy said this one thing and it must be true, so I'm going to do what he said. Or, 3 people said 3 things that all are about the same, and I think that must be true. You need to get a lot of information from a lot of different people. Should I use a gallery or should I not? Should I make my own prints or should I just focus on originals? Those questions need to be answered by a lot of different people, and you need to measure that against your own life and look at your own situation. Because people ask me really complex questions sometimes, like on Facebook, they'll say something that's really complex and they expect me to answer with 1 or 2 sentences. And it's just never that simple in many cases. So I hope that what I say leads people to want to get more information, and maybe they can learn some things from me or from you. That would be great, but they need to get a lot of information from more than just a few people. So that's my beginning little.
Okay. Stephen, that was quite wonderful and eye-opening. When you started with your art career back in 1986, you started as a full-time. So you dropped out from college, you said, and you must have faced some struggle during that time because you said that there was no internet. Now there is internet and life is quite easy, but that time it was quite difficult. Can you share some of your difficult moments and your
Sure.
journey?
The fact that we have the internet is great, but it doesn't change the very fundamental reality that a lot of people in this world aren't interested in art. They appreciate it and they will say nice things, but that doesn't mean they're going to buy something. So that's a caveat. You know that word caveat? It's like, let me put this in front just to make sure that I don't sound like I'm exaggerating too much. Because yes, the internet is great. Having social media, I have a lot of new people finding out about my work because of Instagram and because of Facebook, and I'm really glad. But it doesn't mean that I've made any money from all of these Facebook fans. I sell very few prints and I sell very few paintings. So when I was getting started, I was in art school at the American Academy of Art only for 2 years. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the fundamentals, color, design, perspective, values, all those really fundamental things. It was very helpful. But I got to a certain point where I realized I wasn't really learning anymore. I just wanted to go and paint. And the learning that I was getting, the teaching that I was getting was very narrow. In other words, the teachers were saying, this is what a watercolor should look like. It should look like this. And I looked at it and thought, yeah, but I don't want to make my watercolors look like that. I want it to look like this, which was more realistic. And I wanted to paint in a different way, and nobody could teach me those things. So long story short, I dropped out of school and I started painting full time. And my wife and I had just gotten married, so she had a job. We didn't have any children. We didn't have any big expenses. We just rented a little apartment. And so I thought, I think if I work really hard at this, I might be able to sell paintings, and eventually I'll get more money, and I might as well start now instead of waiting until I'm retired, which was the story I had read. I got a lot of art magazines, and this is kind of like going on the internet back in the 80s. I went to the library and I researched through the Guide to Periodical literature, which was a way to type in, to look up topics. And I was looking at art magazines because that's all we had. And I was reading stories about artists and finding out, well, what did they do? And the biggest story at the time that I kept hearing was people got a job as a commercial artist or an illustrator. And then eventually when they put their kids through school and they paid off their house or whatever, then they started painting full time, when they were old. And they talked about how much they loved the ability to paint full time now that they had gotten that 30 years out of the way. And I thought, I don't want to do 30 years of illustration or commercial art. I was willing to do it, but I was thinking, if I don't have to, I'd rather not, because I wasn't a good commercial artist anyway. I wasn't good at lettering. I wasn't good at graphic design. I really wasn't. I'm still not. So my wife and I decided to take this leap into this unknown world of being an artist. And the other thing that I read about from all of the artists in the magazines was that they were represented by galleries. And these weren't galleries in a small town or galleries in a mid-sized town. They were almost all galleries in New York. Maybe Chicago, maybe another major city, but it really was the very top of the gallery world. And that's where I saw, from what I read, that's where you could possibly make a living, not just sell a few paintings now and then, but if you were represented by a really top-notch gallery, then maybe you could make a living. So I started selling paintings just to family and friends at first, for only about 6 months or less. And very quickly, when I got out of art school, I noticed that my paintings were taking much longer. When I was in art school, I was being taught that you should do a painting in one day. Mm-hmm. And I thought, those paintings are nice. I don't have anything against them, but I don't want to paint like that. I want to paint much more detailed. So because my paintings were taking much longer, I had to sell them for more. Otherwise, I was making very little money. And then I realized, well, that's where a gallery can really help you. In the best situation, a gallery can sell the painting for a lot more money than you can sell as an unknown young artist. At least that's my experience back in the 80s. So I got a gallery in Chicago that wanted to represent me, and they were able to sell my paintings pretty consistently. But I was so naive. I thought that when I finished a painting and I shipped it to the gallery, that they would sell it right away. And then I would get a check the next month. And I would send them another painting, and then they would sell it right away and send me a check. I thought I would get a regular income from being an artist. And I really thought that that was not unusual. I thought that's what I should expect. And I learned the hard way that, no, that's not how it normally works. Normally, a gallery can't sell your paintings every single time. They might get to that place years down the road after they build up your name and you have a lot of exhibits and you build up an audience and a list of collectors. But anyway, I got started in a number of different small ways that they all added up to me saying, I want to do this full time. I made the decision with my wife and with her support. If she hadn't wanted me to do that, that would have been okay. That would have been a kind of a expected thing, actually, for a young couple to make this giant leap into this unknown world of art. It was we were both kind of naive, but she really believed in my painting ability. But she's working today. She has a job today. I only had a brief time in our early adulthood where I was able to make all of our money or almost all of our money. Whereas today, since about 2010 or so, I've been making about half the money. My wife makes the other half. I don't make enough money to live on based on our lifestyle. We have a house with a mortgage payment, and we have grown kids now, but for all the years that I was painting, it was very inconsistent. So there was only about half of the time that I made enough money to live on. The other half, it's been a mixture of me and my wife together. So I want to give people the the clarity of what my situation really is. I don't want anybody to think, hey, he's made all this money and it's not been too hard. I can do it too. I don't know. Maybe you can, but just, again, to be cautious. I don't want anybody to get into financial trouble because they think it's going to be so easy. That was a long answer, wasn't it?
No, but I was quite like, I got carried away. I was feeling like I'm just experiencing those things along with you. And
well, in fact, let me tell you a story that will give you even more of a background, because I think this might be interesting and maybe helpful. When I was going to the American Academy of Art, my wife and I had just gotten married. We lived in a little apartment, and I was able to walk back and forth to school. And I really liked the energy of living in a big city like Chicago. And I liked the fact that I could see a lot of other things all within my own neighborhood, within my own, like 1 square mile. I saw famous people. I saw celebrities. I saw rich people. I saw a lot of poor people. And I really felt like I could be any of those things. I could be a poor person, but I also might be successful. I might become a celebrity because they're just real people like me. I remember walking down the street and there was Oprah Winfrey. She was right walking the other direction. We crossed paths. That's when she had a TV show in Chicago. And I never did become a celebrity, but it kind of gave me the idea that everybody is just a person. And there is the ability to maybe make something of your life that's, more than just kind of mediocre suburban life, which is nothing wrong with that, but that's just where I came from. I was just a regular kid from a regular family in a regular suburb. So there was a couple of exhibits in, I think this would be 1985. Oh, this one was 87. Let me see if I have here's the first time I saw an exhibit. In fact, I don't think I even saw the exhibit. I just saw the little catalog.
Oh, wow. And
it says Heartland Painters.
This is your painting?
No, it's not. This is the cover of a little booklet.
Okay.
And this is an artist named James Wynn. Mm-hmm. And this booklet was promoting a art show. And I was still in art school at the time. And I saw artists doing this sort of work.
Okay.
This is James Butler.
Okay.
It showed him in his studio. It gave a little bit of information about his career. And then there was a second artist also doing these Midwestern landscape scenes, Keith Jacob Chagan.
This is in which medium?
This is acrylic. No, I'm sorry. Those are oil.
Okay.
This one, this artist here at the time was doing pastel. This is actually pastel on paper. Okay. And my favorite of the three was James Wynn. And I had heard about James Wynn. I heard about him because he went to Illinois State University like I did, although I dropped out. And then he went to the American Academy of Art, just like I did, but I dropped out. But I knew about him, and I saw his work in this catalog. I got a little catalog just of his paintings. And you can see where I got a lot of inspiration, can't you?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yep.
Color schemes and the sky and the clouds.
So I loved these paintings, and I knew that these men lived in the same state as me, and I knew that they were making a living at their art to some extent. I didn't know the details. I didn't know exactly how much money, but they were represented by good galleries, and they were selling their paintings for a lot of money. So I thought, man, that's what I want to do. I want to do what these guys are doing. And I went to one of the guys that taught James Wynn, the professor that I never had at Illinois State because I didn't stay there long enough, was Harald Gregor.
Okay.
Harald Gregor was a photorealist painter who painted Midwestern scenes starting in the 70s. And he did some impressionistic paintings, and then he did some very photorealistic paintings like this one.
Okay.
So on the way home from school one day, I stopped at the gallery in Chicago where Harald Gregor's paintings were being displayed for a show. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to paint what this guy does, something like that. I don't want to imitate him, but seeing the paintings in person was so much more powerful than just seeing them in a little booklet. And so this was like midday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There was nobody else in this little gallery. And if people haven't visited a real art gallery, a serious art gallery, they don't sell jewelry and trinkets and coffee mugs. It's not in a shopping mall. It's very, it looks like a museum. It's prestigious. The whole focus is on the art. It's very pure. So you go there to look at art and maybe to buy art, but you don't go there because it's fun. It's more serious than that. So just to kind of paint the picture of what it was like for me as a young artist, I thought, I want to be an artist like this Harald Gregor guy or James Wynn. And I sat in the little bench and I literally said a prayer to God. I said, I want to paint like this guy. Amen. That's all I could muster up. I was so passionate about it. And it was roughly 1 year later that I was now selling my paintings in a gallery in Chicago, in the same building where the gallery that sold Harald Gregor's paintings was.
Wow.
So it wasn't the same gallery, but it was in a building that had, I think, 5 or 6 floors, and there was different galleries on each floor. It was known as a gallery building. So you asked me one of the questions, what is your first sale?
Yeah.
This is my first major sale. I sold a few paintings for, hundreds of dollars, but nothing really big, just family and friends mostly. Mm-hmm. The first 3 paintings I sent to this gallery in Chicago. This is about 6 months after I dropped out of art school. Mm-hmm. I sent these 3 paintings to this gallery, and they didn't sell them the first month. They didn't sell them the second month. They didn't sell them even the third month. So that's normal, but I didn't know that at the time. Okay. At the time, I thought, why haven't these paintings sold? Okay. They're really good. Somebody should want to buy them. I think it was in the 3rd or 4th month that the paintings finally did sell, all 3.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know this at the time. I don't remember. Sometime in the next couple of years, I learned the story about who they sold to. And this is the story. The person who came into the gallery, maybe it was a couple of people. I don't remember the story exactly, but they came in that building to buy a Harald Gregor painting, the guy that I had just seen a year earlier. And the elevator got off on the wrong floor. And so the gallery where Harald Gregor's paintings was maybe the 3rd floor, and the gallery that sold my paintings was the 4th or the 5th floor. And since they got off on the wrong floor, they said, well, let's look around here anyway, might as well. And they saw my paintings, and they could buy 3 of my paintings.
Wow.
For the price of 1 of Harald Gregor's paintings. And it was a big company in Chicago. It was a big insurance company, if I remember right, or an investment company. So they had money in their budget at the time to buy artwork, which a lot of companies don't do this anymore. But at the time, they were going to buy a Harald Gregor painting. So that was my first big sale. It was not, wow. Isn't that neat? I mean, it was just a funny coincidence. And I met Harald Gregor when he had a show in 1993, and he signed this and said to Steve, finally we meet. And he was very, very, very kind to me, very encouraging. And I wound up selling my paintings in a gallery with Harald Gregor and with James Wynn and some other people. And James Wynn is now like a big brother to me. He's been very encouraging. He's a great friend. And when I was just getting started, and I wasn't being represented by a gallery yet, if I remember right. In that first 6 or 8 months or so, I knew about James Wynn, and I started to write him a letter asking for his advice, and then I never put it in the mail. I never sent it to him because I didn't want to bother him. And so I just set the letter aside, and I thought, I don't want to bother him. He's famous. He's a serious artist. I'm a nobody. Why would he want to help me or give me advice or whatever? And it was about sometime in the first year that I was selling in that gallery in Chicago, the man who ran the gallery called me up and he said, Steve, there was an artist who just came in. He just left a few minutes ago, but I thought you might want to know this artist. His name is James Wynn. He came in to see your paintings.
Wow.
And I said, what? Whoa, wait. James Wynn came to see my paintings? He said, yeah, he heard about you from somebody else, and he wanted to see the new kid on the block, or something like that.
Wow.
So then I had the courage to actually send him a letter, And I met him, and he was very encouraging, just a wonderful guy, and we're friends to this day. And we wound up selling at a gallery in Milwaukee about 10 years later or so. Harald Gregor, Jim Butler, James Wynn, they were all people that I was able to sell my paintings alongside of. And that was a real privilege to me.
Wow, that is such a good story you said. Uh, Really, I'm actually getting more and more inspired by you.
Oh, good. And those are the good parts. I'm not telling you all the times when something didn't sell and we didn't have money for our bills. And maybe it was because of those good stories that I kept going. There was times where I thought, maybe I need to get a job. Maybe I need to go. And I don't have any skill to get a job. I didn't know even what I could do. There was one time, this would be in the late 1990s, where I had given a talk to a Rotary Club, because sometimes I would be invited to talk about my art at a local organization. And the guy who invited me was the manager for a big car dealership in Madison, Wisconsin. I live near Madison, Wisconsin. And he was really nice. I really liked him. And sometime in the next year, I put on a suit and I went for a job interview at his car dealership, because I thought, I got to get a job. And I maybe I could be a car salesman. I hear they make, pretty good money.
This is in which year?
This was in the late 1990s.
Oh.
Because I thought, I'm failing. I don't have enough money. I can't support my family. And I went and talked to this guy about getting a job. And he said to me, Steve, you would probably be a good car salesman. I'm sure you could do this, but you're such a good artist. I really feel bad about even hiring you. I would hire you tomorrow, but I don't really want to, because I think you should continue being an artist. And so I drove home and I thought, man, I can't even get the job at a car dealership. Maybe I should try harder at this. And so there were a number of times where I thought, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Not because I wasn't a talented painter, but because I didn't really know how to make enough money on a regular basis. So that's kind of the best and the worst of my life situation.
Shall I add few things here for the audience?
Sure.
I really feel, I was working as a software engineer for 12 years, and I did my master's in computer science before that. So I have a little bit of thing about this particular situation. See, what happens is, if you are a doctor, if you are an engineer, you don't work alone. You work in company with other people. So for example, a junior doctor is working under the guidance of senior doctor. The senior doctor is telling the junior doctor how to work and what to do and how to get more experience. And once the junior doctor gets enough exposure, junior doctor carries on with his own life and he can create his own business and all that, right? Same happens with engineers. So when I was a junior engineer, I was in a team. So there was a manager, there was a team leader, there were a lot of senior engineers, and then I was a junior trainee engineer. So I was guided by so many people, and because of that, I never felt that I'm working all alone. The same thing, the different thing happens with artists. All the artists are working separately. So Stephen Kozar worked separately. There was nobody to specifically hold his hand and pull him down the road and teach, okay, this is what you need to do and this is what you don't need to do, right? This is correct, this is not correct. So Stephen Kozar would have done much better, isn't it, Stephen? So this thing was not there mainly because of two reasons. Number one, lack of communication. There was not enough ways to communicate. So when engineers work, they work in a single building or a single structure where they are working together in a team in a single room, and therefore they can communicate with each other. Same thing doesn't happen with artists. They all work separately, right? The second problem is, I have strongly felt that no artist even cares about another artist's career, whether it is going up, going down, whatever is happening. How does that matter? That artist is so stressed, earning so much just for himself or herself, that he doesn't bother about if Stephen is earning or not earning. Okay, matter of factly, if Stephen meets somebody, he can guide a few things and carry on with his life. But there is no teamwork going on, right? I want to tell other people that even the senior most artists now, I want that, now we can change this situation. We can work together and we can pull each other up. If artists are not helping other artists, then who will care for other artists? I feel strongly for artists, and I believe that, artists, senior artists must come forward and share and help junior artists to come forward. Isn't it, Stephen?
Yeah, everybody has to decide for themselves how much they want to get involved in other artists' life. But my experience is that the handful of the artists that I mentioned who have been encouraging to me and a few others, it made a big difference. And so when I was younger, I was a lot more competitive. I didn't really want to help people so much as I wanted to help myself, because I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to succeed. And I feel a lot differently now. I feel a lot more strongly about trying to help people. I only have so much time, so I can so much, but I do. What you're saying is reminding me how when I started my YouTube channel, I was hoping to do more of that. And because I'm a perfectionist, I haven't done as much as I would like to. I haven't made as many videos as I thought I would in my head, but I hope to do more because I'm constantly sharing information with people whenever I have the chance to help them not make the same mistakes if possible.
There is a difference here, Stephen, the way you are saying and what I'm saying. The thing is, in when we are working as like in a software company or in doctors, like junior doctor working under senior, right? So it is not like they are doing it for free. So the senior doctor is not helping the junior doctor for free, right?
True.
Okay, so here I have seen that there are many upcoming artists who feel that they should get the help from the senior people, but they want it for free of cost. Okay, always. Okay, so that doesn't help, because if you are giving your mind the feed that you cannot invest in your own career by giving the senior artist money, then your art career will not go anywhere.
Right. Okay. So let me take that idea, and it's out of order from what we have in our little list of questions.
Right.
What you're saying ties in exactly to what I plan on doing. I have made a YouTube channel with some teaching available for free, and I haven't pursued it partially because I'm a perfectionist and I just don't do anything until everything seems to be right. And that's why I just haven't done very much with it. But I also haven't done much with it because I did it for free. So when I have a choice between doing something to help myself make an income and doing something for free, I will generally do the thing that I have to do to make money. So my plan for the future is to continue having short videos on YouTube for free, but they will be little excerpts of the full teaching that will be something people have to pay for, which seems to me to be a good compromise. If people really want to learn from me, that's great, but I shouldn't really expect to give that away for free, just like you said, because I'm not really setting a good example.
Right.
It kind of leads the impression that artists have this unlimited amount of time on their hands, and we really don't.
Right.
And we shouldn't even have to apologize.
It is not professional also. It is not professional also.
Right. So you've been encouraging me to
online courses.
To do online courses. Exactly. And so I don't have an exact announcement to make today, but I am in the planning stages of doing online teaching. In fact, my son is going to help me because we've been talking for the last couple of days about this. He really loves filmmaking, and he has professional filmmaking or film editing software on his computer. And I said, look, I need you to help me because I want to do this really, really well. I don't want to make this corny and cheesy and low budget. I want to make this look good, and I want it to be really interesting and even entertaining to a point. I don't want to make it kind of boring, but I want somebody to help me. And he said, oh, Dad, I'll help you. So
you are lucky.
It's going to be really good.
Now, I don't believe in luck, by the way, but here you have a son who is helping you for editing. So not everyone gets that thing. So I have started my online courses with a very low budget, and I'm just using Facebook and Zoom technologies for giving this training, and it is quite successful. And I have given training to quite many people so far, and they have got fabulous results. So it is not always that very high-end technology is important, because there are many artists all around the world who does not have the privilege to edit their the videos and all those things. I want to encourage those people also, like those artists also, that it is not always that you need a very high budget thing or very edited sophisticated thing. If you are a damn good artist and if you are a damn good teacher, then you can make a lot of money,
That's
because
true.
yeah, because now the whole world is your market.
Well, and I don't have really expensive equipment, but I just want to make it as good as possible, is what I'm saying. In fact, I think what you're saying points to an interesting idea, and that is, I've looked at some of the teaching videos on YouTube, not a lot, but some, and to me, they take too long to get to the point, and they're kind of boring, and they have this frilly music that starts, and they have these long introductions, and to me, it doesn't, I want to switch it off right away. I'm like, duh. I can't stand this. Just get to the point. Show me how to make a better painting. That's what I want. If it was me, and I didn't have anything like that when I was getting started, I went to the library, I looked at all the articles, I read every book I could find, and there was nothing. So I love the idea that I could help teach people in a way that gets to the point, and it's really interesting, and it's professional enough. But if you go too far with professional video editing, well, now it's all about the video itself and not about the content of the video. So I agree. If I had to choose, I would make a very, very simple but really a video that taught really well, but it was just simple. But if I can, I'm going to make a really good video that teaches well and looks as good as it can look. And it's a little bit more professional, but not too professional, because I agree. I don't want to go down that road. Like, okay, here's a secret about videos. You want to know the secret to make videos look really professional?
Yeah.
You use a camera with a wide aperture lens. That's all you do.
Okay, I will write it down.
A wide aperture lens, and you have to have a digital SLR camera. You can't do this with an iPhone. And it has a wide aperture. All that means is that the person's face is in focus, and everything behind and everything in front is all blurry. That's what happens when you use a large aperture. And if you use that for filmmaking, it looks professional. It's not that hard. You just have to have the right lens with the aperture wide open. And now everybody goes, oh, ooh, he's a professional filmmaker. It's like, oh, it's not that hard. So anyway.
I have written it down. Okay. So this is a point to be noted. So I'm very sure that, there will be lots of people who are eagerly waiting for you to come up with the online course where they can come and join and learn from you, because knowledge is something which should keep flowing from one person to another, and not every person can come and visit you personally. So there has to be a way in which you can share online. My next question for you is, we are writing a book together along with Angus McEwan, David Stickle, Mikhail Starchenko. Please share some information about that book. I can share a lot about it, but I want you to share something about it.
Let me show you. Hang on. It's here somewhere. I want to show you the painting. This is not the original painting. I sold the original painting.
Oh, you sold? Okay.
But this is a print. But when I made this painting, for the first time ever, I documented the whole process. I took a lot of photographs, hundreds and hundreds of photographs, and I wrote a whole chapter. And this is the painting that I worked on. So a lot of people really enjoyed this painting. It's been a very popular painting for me, which I'm glad.
I am so lucky that I saw it from scratch, like right from the drawing stage till the ending stage. So just for you people, I want to share that next year in 2020, my book is coming into market, and I'm the lead author of the book. And I'm writing this book along with Stephen Kozar, Angus McEwan, David Stickle, and Mikhail Starchenko. So these are other 4 co-authors, and I am the lead author in that book. And this book will be simply unbeatable book, because it is having so much of information on how to make a realistic painting that you will not be going to anywhere else. And what will happen to the previous book? So this book will be a serious competitor to my previous book. All those people who love my style, who wants to understand how I work and truly how I work, they should purchase the first book, Realistic Watercolor Unleashed. The second book is a combination of this one. I cannot talk enough about it. It is a super good book. And but the second book is having my knowledge, 70%, 1 chapter each by Stephen Kozar, Angus McEwan, David Stickle, and Mikhail Starchenko. And there is one special chapter it is by a very famous Indian photographer, Kumar Kanchu. Kumar Kanchu is not his real name, it is his pen name, and he will have 1 more chapter, and that will be a whole and soul complete book on realism, right? So, Stephen, I would like you to share something about it.
Well, the thing I really liked about your idea for this book, because I thought about writing a book for years, but I thought I have a very narrow approach to everything I do. I have a very specific way of doing what I do, and it's not for everybody. It really isn't. And I don't say that to pretend to be modest. I really mean what I say. I don't expect people to want to paint like me or to even use all of my techniques. But some of my techniques will be really helpful for some of the people who get this book. But if you get the book because it has 5 people, it's so much better than getting a book that just has 1 person. Because it's possible you'll get the book because you want to read my chapter, but my chapter won't be as good as maybe the chapter from Meeta.
No way.
Or from Angus or from David or from Mikhail. But all of us together will give different viewpoints of a similar topic, but all of those viewpoints together should be really, really useful. And I can't imagine that somebody won't learn a lot from this book because there's more than 1 person. And I like to teach a certain way. I like to do things a certain way. And I try really hard to say, you don't have to do it this way. You really don't. I'm just telling you what I do. And if you don't like my way, don't do it that way. Because that's what I did. When I was in art school, I had teachers who said, I do it like this and you should do it like this. And I said, no, thank you. I don't want to do it that way. That's the beauty of being an artist. You can do it however you want. You don't have to do it any way that somebody says. It's just useful to have a lot of options.
That was one of the motives of doing it with all together.
Yep.
And the other motive was there are many artists who don't want to write a book because they are so busy with their paintings and all their life that they don't want to write a book. And I wanted to write this book along with other artists because I felt that their knowledge is so precious that, the knowledge should keep flowing from one person to another. And because they are not able to write a book from scratch to finish, like from starting, like from planning stage to marketing and selling stage, they can't do it because of time commitments. I should jump into it and I should take away all their problems. They just need to paint and write. They don't have to do marketing. They don't have to do editing or anything else. So that was my concept behind this thing. And I was quite, I will consider myself quite, I don't want to use that word lucky because that is not there in my dictionary. But
Right.
Sometimes I do feel like, Stephen Kozar, I approached him, he said yes. I approached Angus, he said yes. I approached Mikhail, he said yes. I went to David and he said yes. I only went to Thierry Dhavel, but he was so busy in 2019 that he could not do it. He also told me that he will be doing it, but not this time. So I'm counting on him. But, I feel that, that is quite a, I don't know why they said yes, because I'm like a small, tiny baby in front of these people, this good artist, renowned artist, and I feel that I feel honored. This is more than their yes was more than a certificate. It was more than an award for me, and I will not let that thing down. Like, they are counting on me to get this book out. I'm so involved in so many other activities that I could not do justice to the book so far, but I will make sure that it is out in the market in 2020.
Well, take your time. Make sure it's done
It
as
will
good
be
as
done
it
in a
can.
fantastic manner. Okay. So
Will
I
it be
have few
will it,
questions for you. Yeah.
will
Okay.
it be about the same size as this book?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. It will be, if not less, if not more, it will be
Hmm.
of same size.
Okay.
Cannot go below that because so much of information is there, so much of things are there. It is very difficult for me to crop, because all information are so valuable that you have
Right.
written. It can make a whole book what you have written,
Hmm.
but I have to crop it in a certain way so that it fits the book size.
Right.
Anyways, so that my next question is, please share a painting tip or hack that you would love to use in your painting. So,
Well, this isn't exactly a painting tip in the sense of physically the painting part itself, but I have a big printer so I can make my own prints.
oh wow,
And
can we see that?
yeah, this is 17 by 25 inches. So my printer is 17 inches wide. Now, the reason I point that out is because when I make a painting, well, here's the watercolor I'm working on right now.
Wow,
You can see
that
there's a
is
lot of
superb.
there's a lot
Superb.
of white that hasn't been painted yet, but you see the sky. And
Wow.
what I do is I have the photograph printed the exact same size as the painting will be,
Mhm.
if possible. If I can't do that, I can't do that. But I try to make the painting the same size as the photograph so that I can actually, if you, let's say I'm looking at, here's the blank piece of paper and here's the photograph as my reference. If all I do is look at the photo and look at the blank piece of paper, it's okay. But what's much better is I will actually cut the photograph into strips, multiple strips. I'll print one off full size and leave it, and I'll print another one off full size and I'll cut it into little pieces, into strips, and I'll lay whatever I'm painting at the moment, I'll lay that right on top of the painting itself, so that the thing I'm working on is literally 1 inch away. It's right next to what I'm working on.
Okay.
And you'll see that in the book. And I also have a video on that on my YouTube channel.
Oh,
So
wow.
when you're a photorealist painter, this is different than painting from life. You're painting from a photo. If you can paint from life, that's incredible. That's the best way to do it. But I paint, this scene right here was gone in 5 minutes. It didn't exist after 5 minutes because the sun went down. So it has to be captured in a photograph. Most of what I do has to be captured in a photograph. So I take really good photographs, which is another topic, as good as I can.
Can you
And
share
then,
the name of the printer?
oh, I have an Epson P800.
I will write it down.
It's about $1,000 printer, but you can have prints made by a company if you want. You don't have to buy your own printer.
Epson P800.
Yep. Yeah, it's a really good middle printer. It's professional enough, but it's not so professional that it costs $5,000. It only costs about $1,000.
Yeah.
But
And this
but even if
printer,
you don't do that,
huge? Is it a huge printer?
no, it's not. It's sitting right. It's only about this big, and you can sit it on top of a dresser. So that's why it's not quite. I used to have a different one that was much bigger and heavier, and
I'm going to have it.
Yeah, it's really useful. In fact, the whole line goes wider. From 17 inches, they have a 24-inch one and then a 44-inch one. But the bigger ones, after 17 inches, it's so big that you really have a hard time finding a spot for it. It has to have its own stand. And, sometimes, like, I'm in my basement right now. This is where my studio is. I couldn't get the big one down the stairs and around the corner because there isn't enough room for it to physically be brought into the room. So this P800 is a really good compromise between a big one and a small one. Anyway,
Okay.
when I'm painting, I don't want to look at the photo over here and the painting of it over here. I want to have that part of the photo right next to this thing that I'm painting. It's amazing how much more beneficial that is.
Can we see your easel where you keep your painting? It will be a fun to, yeah, wow.
It's this big, it's just a big easel that's mounted against the wall. And you'll see it in the book, but when I'm painting the washes, I have this stiff, I have it in my lap. So I paint the washes in my lap, but most of the painting is done up here. I usually have, let's see if I have the photo. Oh, I don't have the photo handy, sorry.
No problem. We can guess it.
When I'm working on let's say I was going to work on the center part of this painting, I would have the photo of that part of the painting right next to it. I wouldn't have it over here. I would have it right there so I can see side by side. Another thing about me
how you will stick that photo there? You will have to hold it?
Yeah, I might have a white piece of paper covering this that's taped on top, and then I would tape that to the white paper because I don't have tape on the painting.
Okay, got it.
I also have a little ledge here, so a lot of times it can just sit on the ledge and just float over the top. So another thing I should mention that makes me different.
This was a great tip for me. I absolutely love this tip.
It's when you're a realist painter, and especially a photorealist or a hyper-realist painter, you have to get everything right. And the values have to be, it can't be a little bit darker or a little bit lighter because now everything gets thrown off. And you can't judge the values unless you're looking at it right next to the actual painting. If you're looking at the photo over here and the painting over here, you can't see if it's right or not. Now, if you were painting a real person, and when I went to the American Academy of Art, I did life drawing, and we had a bench with the same kind of angle that you see here. And instead of having a photo, we had the model that we were painting a model, and we always had our bench, like I'm looking at you right now. If you were the model, my bench would be right next to the model. So I would look at the model, I would look at the drawing, I would look at the model, look at the drawing. So I learned that from my experience at art school. And for years I used, in fact, let me show you this. I didn't take digital photos because we didn't have digital cameras. I used 35 millimeter slides.
Oh, wow.
And this is how I worked before digital. This is a little magnifier. I got it from my dad when I was a kid. This is just an inexpensive magnifier. My dad worked on a printing press. And he gave me a couple of these. They would sit in a printer's pocket, and then they would unfold them. It's called a loop.
Okay. Quite interesting.
So you could sit this on top of whatever. I was using it for a slide, and then I could see the slide, and I could see the painting. So I was doing this with the slide back before I had digital photographs. So I'm looking at the scene that I want to paint, and right next to it is the painting itself.
Okay. Are the colors accurate?
Oh, 35 millimeter slide film was very accurate.
Okay.
And it helped if you knew the difference between the slide film, because I used Fuji slide film, and it had more reds and it was more vibrant. Kodak Ektachrome was more accurate. In fact, I didn't even think about this until I'd been doing it for a while. But my paintings from the 1990s look like Fuji slides.
Okay.
Because they were really bold and they had really bright reds and violet colors. And one of my best friends and one of my favorite painters is a guy named Rod Penner, R-O-D, Rod Penner. And he was using Ektachrome film. And Ektachrome film is not as vibrant. It was very accurate. And his paintings are more subdued and more realistic than mine because of that. So just an interesting little fact.
But I do like more vibrant, like, this is my painting, the corn, the standing tall in a storm. This is my second realistic painting, which was done in March 2015 when I started with realism. And I asked my daughters which color kernel I should paint. So one said green, one said red, and I added all the colors which I had.
Yeah. You can do that when you're an
Yeah,
artist.
I like it. I sort of like it. And the painting that you can see in the back, that is my daughter's painting. I added
Yeah.
a lot of drama with pink, and I even changed the dress color of my elder daughter just to go with the color scheme, pinkish.
And this brings up an interesting point for me. I think it's really good for an artist to take whatever you're excited about and just go for it. And if you find somewhere down the road, 5 years, 10 years, maybe 20 years later, you don't really like that thing anymore, well, change it, do
Yeah, for
something
sure.
different.
Yeah.
I think one of the difficulties of being a professional painter is that you become, if you have any success at all, you become known as the guy who paints this. And now 5 years, maybe 10 years later, you feel like, well, I have to paint that thing again because that's what people expect from me. And you can burn out. You can feel like you're just a machine now duplicating yourself. And so for me, if I look at my body of work, because I've been doing this 33 years, I think. 33, I
Yeah,
think.
33, 33.
Okay. So I've changed over the years. And I think that's a healthy thing because you feel like I'm now excited again because I'm doing something different. If you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again, and this is for people who have been doing it a long time, if you're just getting started, this doesn't really apply to you. But in
For
fact,
me, for me, I really don't care. Whichever subject I like, whether it is a wildlife or portrait or figurative or still life, whatever I like, I paint. I
yeah,
basically feel that I should be the queen. I should be the decision maker. Nobody should
sure.
rule over me.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I read from Leo Castelli, he was a big New York art dealer back in the 50s and 60s. He said that an artist should have a style and an approach to their painting so that when a person walks into a gallery and they see that artist,
Mhm.
they see their paintings across the room, they should immediately know, oh, that's a Kozar.
Okay.
And I think I took that advice maybe even too far early on because
Mhm.
I think my work, I was always working in that panoramic format like I saw my other artist friends doing.
Mhm.
And in fact, I'll show you, this was from 1994. This was one of my most panoramic
Wow.
paintings.
Wow. Wow. This is so superb. The clouds, I'm dying for these clouds. Actually, I wanted to have these type of clouds in the book.
Yeah, I don't do these kind of clouds very much. I did some of this wet into wet, like you would
Mhm.
expect. But a
Mhm.
lot of the tiny little details, I was just doing a million little brush strokes.
Mhm.
It was painful. I don't ever want to paint this ever again, in fact. It was,
Okay.
but here, let me show you another one that's similar, but you'll see what I mean about the wet into wet.
So all this prints you have taken from your printer?
This is before I had a printer, before we could make our own prints, I was being
Mhm.
published by a company called Wild Wings. So these were
Mhm.
made by Wild Wings back in the 90s.
Okay. So, but this printer, what you suggested, is good enough to print these?
It's better.
Oh, is it?
It's
I'm
better.
surely going to purchase this right away.
Yeah, and this
Wow.
Wild Wings made the best quality prints that were capable of being made at the time. And they spent a lot of money with, this is acid-free paper. This is really good quality ink. But it was made on a big printing press,
Mhm.
very expensive. And they had to make 1,000 of them to get
Mhm.
the money back.
Oh,
So they
wow.
had to sell a lot of prints to just cover their costs. So
Mhm.
when you buy your own printer now, you can cover your costs pretty quickly because it's $1,000 for one printer that you'll use for 5 years.
I just need one more student for my online course.
Okay. No, but here, let me show you what I mean about this. The layers of the color, the background color was all
Wow,
done in
it's so
washes.
cool.
And then the clouds were added wet into wet. And at the very end, I used tiny little brush strokes to define the clouds a little bit more. So
Mhm.
that's wet
That
into
gives a lot of insight.
wet into wet is great for getting things to be very smooth and to create those smooth transitions. But
Mhm.
wet into wet doesn't give you enough control. So I use a combination of wet into wet and some dry brush. I
Mhm.
use the dry brush at the end.
Okay.
Some artists would look at this and think I used an airbrush, but I don't. I don't really like an airbrush. I could use an airbrush, and I do have one, but I almost never use it, just because it's me. I don't like it. I have other friends who use airbrushes, and they do really, really well. So it's just a personal preference.
I can see many other paintings also at that. Was that some old paintings? Like, would you
Yeah.
like to share some old ones?
How much time do we have for this video? Because I have a bunch
Oh,
of
it is all done. It is 1 hour already passed, and I still have two more questions for you. I will
Okay.
just come up very
We'll
fast.
we'll
Yeah,
do another one of these videos.
yeah,
And
sure. Can
I'll
you
show
have
you more
five
things.
five more minutes?
Sure.
Just
Oh yeah.
because I got some questions. Number one, what would be the most important tool you could not live without? Like
I
good
saw that.
quality paper, good quality watercolor paint, or what exactly?
Can you see my brushes?
Yeah, quite far away.
Yeah, paintbrushes are kind of important. So if you took away my good paintbrushes, it would really limit my ability to make a good painting. And if you gave me that terrible watercolor paper that they give kids in elementary school or in middle school, that would really limit my ability to make good paintings. If you gave me those really inexpensive little watercolor trays, I could actually make a good painting, even if I had those cheap watercolors. It wouldn't be my choice because it doesn't have enough versions of yellow or blue. It always has a terrible version of yellow. And it always has a pretty terrible version of green too. But the blues are fine, the reds are fine. But all that to say, a paintbrush is extremely important. And there's only two brushes that I really use consistently. It's the Winsor & Newton Series 7 brush. And I mentioned this in one of my videos. You can see I have, this is the jar with the most recent brushes. These are the ones that I've used the least. And if I haven't even used them yet, I leave this plastic protector on so that I know that this is a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't have money for my utility bill, and I didn't have money for food, and I didn't have money for my mortgage payment, I would still buy paintbrushes first, and I would be late with all my other bills. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I need to have these really good brushes to do the kind of controlled, detailed work that I do. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I'm extremely nearsighted. So when I paint, I have a separate pair of glasses that allows me to see right here.
Mm-hmm.
With my normal glasses on, I can see good from about here out. These are the glasses I wear for the rest of the day. But when I'm reading or when I'm working, I use these glasses, which is for right here. But when I'm actually painting, half of the time that I'm painting, I'm not using glasses at all. I'm getting like this.
Okay.
And this is what I just learned about 5 years ago when I went to a different eye doctor. He explained to me, he said, Steve, your nearsightedness is extremely unusual. You don't just see normal up close. You see much, much better than normal up close. You see things up close that other people can't see at all unless they have a magnifying glass. So I went, oh, okay. Nobody ever explained that to me before. So when I was working on a painting and I was fussing over every little detail, and my poor wife would say, honey, I think it's done. It looks good to me. I'd say, no, it's not. It doesn't look good. Look at all that stuff that's not finished yet. Well, she literally can't see what I could see. So it's like we were speaking two different languages.
Yeah, right.
So now that when I understood that, in fact, the first thing I did on the way home from the eye doctor was I called my friend Rod Penner and I said, hey, Rod, do you have the same nearsightedness that I do? He says, yep, that's what, because he makes paintings that are 6 inches by 6 inches, and they're amazing. You see them on a computer screen and you think it must be, 3 feet. No, it's only 6 inches. So when he gets up close, he can see every little detail. So it's a blessing and a curse because I'm painting things that some people don't even see.
I cannot see. I have a problem with my eye.
And that's why most people don't paint the way I paint. And that's, again, where I say, you don't have to paint like me. I'm just telling you what I do. And if it doesn't apply, don't worry about it. So going back to your question, I really need to have good paper. I really need to have good brushes.
Which paper you use?
I have a whole video about the one paper that I use. And it's not the most important thing for everybody else to know, but I use Arches hot press paper from an extra wide slightly heavier roll. It's 156-pound paper. I have a whole video on my YouTube channel
Okay.
about my paper. And it's hot press, but it's not as smooth as some other hot press.
Okay.
Because the problem with hot press paper is that if it's really, really smooth, you only have a very short amount of time to work, and then it starts to dry, and you get hard edges to things. So the Arches hot press paper that I use is only off of the roll. It's 156-pound paper. Normally you think of 140-pound or the thicker 300-pound. Well, I use the one called 156-pound, and it turns out that's the exact same paper. I found out James Wynn uses the same paper as me. And it's really good for doing multiple washes, but it's smooth enough that you don't see that texture.
Okay.
And there's a part of me that thinks I shouldn't be using this paper, because that's why people say, that's not a watercolor, that's a photograph. That can't be a watercolor. I'm like, no, it really is. You're lying. I'm like, I know, I'm not lying. That would be a fraudulent activity. I can't possibly be lying for 33 years of my career. Oh, it's not possible. I know a lot about watercolor, and that's not possible to. I'm like, I should use the paper that has a little bit of texture so that it would be easier for people to see.
I use that.
Yeah,
I use cold pressed. So
yeah, cold press is great. Cold press is a really good paper. I recommend that people use the middle of the road cold press paper. If you can get the 300-pound paper, you don't have to stretch it because it's really thick and it doesn't buckle very much. But if you get the 140-pound, you can stretch it.
We are running a little late, but I still have one question regarding the size of your work. Do you start a piece with a finished size in mind, as you know, people notice your work varies a lot in different sizes, or do you have a formula that you apply while selecting the size for painting? How you select the size?
I do think about a number of things before I make a painting. Like, for instance, if I'm trying to make a painting that will go to a gallery that's representing me right now, and they have 5 paintings, I will try to make a painting that doesn't look like any of the other 5 paintings. It might be bigger, it might be smaller, it might be winter instead of the summer. You know, all of those things have an effect. So I think about proportions first. In other words, I think about what's the composition going to be? What will I leave in and what will I edit? So sometimes I look at an image that, you know, a camera is a rectangle, and I look at it and I go, yeah, but is that rectangle what I want? Am I just painting it because it's in the photograph? What if I crop it? Is that going to make it better or worse? So I think about all of those things before I think about the final size. I think about the proportions of the rectangle first. And then I think, well, I only have so much time right now because I want to get this painting done by the end of next month so I can send it to a show or whatever. That's where I might say, well, I'm only going to make this one 10 inches square, because if I make it bigger than that, it'll just take too long and I won't get it done in time. So it's sometimes about composition. It's also about some just very practical things as well.
Okay. And the last question goes here. What message would you like to give to upcoming watercolor artists who are planning to start as a professional?
As a profession, I would give much more specific advice than to somebody who just wants to be a good painter, because they're very different. Being a really good watercolor painter is a wonderful thing, and I would love to know that I encourage people to become really good at watercolor because it brings joy to their lives. But to make a living, now you've just entered a completely separate category, and you better be driven. You better be so passionate. You better be like, if you like watching lots of television shows and playing games and maybe going and golfing, and don't be an artist for a living. You don't have time. You got to make this thing really a big priority. So I don't golf. I actually went golfing a few times, and I found it really fun. And I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to learn to golf because it will distract me. I don't have time. I don't watch TV. I don't play games very much. So to be a watercolor painter as a living requires an incredible amount of discipline. And that discipline shouldn't be forced on you by your external circumstances. In other words, you really don't have a boss. So it better be internal. It better be you saying, man, I really want to do this.
Right.
And if you don't feel that way, that's fine. Just don't think that you can become a professional without having that passion inside. And if you do have that passion, like you do, you will do it. You'll find a way, right?
I will do it,
Yep.
Stephen.
Yeah.
There is no doubt about it. Uh, I would also like to add few suggestions to the upcoming artists who are trying to become professional. Is this world is very competitive. I have seen many upcoming artists, they crave for instant gratification. They just try to participate and win some awards. This doesn't work like that. First of all, if your painting skills are not good, no way you are going to get no award or no type of promotional activities, branding activities can help you to become a very good artist. No way. Okay. Right. So even if you are super rich and you are promoting yourself like crazy, you
Right.
are trying to participate in all the exhibitions, in all the international contests, just because you have got tons of money with you, it will be a big zero. Finally, you will not earn, right? You may get fame, those type of false fame and recognition, but you will not get the true respect from your followers. That is number one. Second is, if you really, really, really are crazy about creating a good professional career, then you must have a guide, a mentor, right? In this crazy world, I do believe that if you have a guide, if you have a mentor who is totally serious about your career, about your success, then you can reach your success in a much shorter amount of time.
Yes.
Without a guide, it is, earlier days, in Stephen Kozar's days, the competition was not so huge. Now you go and check out Instagram, so many artists are coming up. Competition has increased, and therefore a mentor is seriously required. I also have a mentor, right? I don't have a mentor in art. I am my own mentor, but for business, for learning how to earn money, I really thought that, I can't keep on struggling like other artists are doing it. For every single month, I'm craving for money. That is not me. I am something different. And I don't want to keep on bothering my head how to earn a lot of money, right? So I came from a different background from software. And I really believe that, you can earn money if you know how to earn money. And therefore, I went to a mentor, and she is giving me so good training on how to do that. And I am ready to give mentorship to other people who really want to achieve a lot of success in the professional life. Okay. Thank you so much, Stephen. I cannot imagine you have spent almost 1.5 hours with me, and you have given so much of value. And
hey, before we finish, can I show you one quick thing that I will feel bad if I don't? Professional artists who paint realism.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a really quick little lesson. Can you see this?
Yeah.
This is you.
Mm-hmm.
You like what you like. You like to paint certain things. You have interests that are really particular to you. And here's everyone else. This is the rest of the world who is not, they're not artists like you. They're not interested in the things you're interested in. Mm-hmm. They have their own hobbies. They like sports. They like flowers. They like their children. They like their pets. They like whatever they like, and it's not going to change. Mm-hmm. Here's how you can help yourself to make a living as a realistic artist. You need to find something where
there is a common thing.
You cross over, and some of what you paint relates to what other people who are not interested in art also like. So if you paint a subject matter that taps into what people are already interested in, just the subject matter alone will help you to sell art. It's very, very practical. If you paint something that is ugly and nobody likes, don't be surprised if you don't sell very many. It's just the way it is. I wish that weren't true. I wish that everybody loved everything that I love, but they don't. And they won't ever change. So I try to say, okay, what do I like to paint? And then what of those things that I like to paint also is something that non-artists like. And that's not hard for me because I like a lot of things. And so that's one of the tips that I often give people. Hope
that is a very practical tip. And thank you so much, Stephen, for spending such valuable time.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate. There is a request for all of you who is watching this video. Please share this video Please add your comment. We have taken a lot of our efforts in sharing information with you. Please help other people to see this. Please help me and Stephen Kozar to reach out other people. We are doing it only for you, but we don't want to limit the reach only to my followers. Stephen will be sharing this video. I will be sharing this video on YouTube as well. But I would like all of you to share this video and spread the word, and let other artists also join me to share their information, their knowledge with the rest of the artists. This is exactly how we can help each other to grow and prosper in professional life. Thank you so much, Stephen. I can't thank you enough for your precious time, and I wish you a very successful career and in online business specifically. I will give my 100% support in your online thing to bring it up to the entire world. Okay. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.